All right, let's jump right in. There's this massive, confusing debate happening right now around AI and our money. You hear one expert say it's going to close the gap between the rich and poor, and then the next day another one says it's going to make a few people unimaginably wealthy and leave everyone else behind. So, what's the real story? The experts are totally split.
I mean, this is the big question, right? And the answer has huge stakes for literally everyone. It's going to shape government policy, it's going to shape your career, our entire future, really. Is this incredibly powerful new technology a great equalizer, or is it a great divider?
And here is where it gets really wild. We went deep into the research, and you know what the evidence says? It says yes to both. Does AI increase inequality? Yep. Does it decrease it? Also yes. Both things are actually happening at the exact same time.
What that means is that the data isn't the problem here. The question is the problem. By asking increase or decrease, we're trying to force a simple binary choice on a reality that's way, way more complicated. And that one mistake is stopping us from seeing the real solution.
Okay, so let's unpack this. To really get our heads around this contradiction, we've got to first understand the people who are in the debate. The whole conversation is basically dominated by 4 different groups, or camps, and each one has their own core belief and, this is key, each one has solid evidence to back it up. So here they are. First, you've got the skill equalizers. They're the optimists who see AI leveling the playing field for workers. Then you've got the capital concentrators. They see AI as a machine for funneling wealth to the very top. The policy determinists argue, hey, the tech itself is neutral. It all just depends on the rules we write for it. And finally, the global divergence camp is worried about a massive widening gap between rich and poor countries. Now here's the thing. Each of these camps is holding a piece of the puzzle. We just need to put them together.
So how on earth can all of them be right? Well, a really fascinating analysis from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, finally cracks the code. It uncovers this core mechanism that no single camp was seeing on its own, and it's a total game changer. And this right here, this is the sentence that unlocks the whole mystery. The IMF discovered that AI works through 2 completely separate channels that are pushing in opposite directions. You've got a labor channel that impacts our wages, and you've got a capital channel that impacts our wealth, our assets. They are not the same thing, and they do not move together.
So for everyone in the skill equalizer camp, here you go. This is your proof. The labor channel shows that equalizing pressure is real. One massive study found that giving workers AI assistance boosted the productivity of the bottom half of performers by an incredible 43%. It shrinks the skill gap. So you're right, your evidence is correct. When it comes to wages, AI really can be a force for more equality.
But, and this is a huge but, for all of you in the capital concentrator camp, you're also completely right. At the very same time, that capital channel is making wealth inequality much worse. The IMF's model showed that AI could spike the wealth Gini coefficient, that's a key measure of inequality, by over 7 percentage points. All those productivity gains are flowing straight to the people who own the assets.
And this gives us a name for what's happening, the Dual Channel Structural Contradiction. This is the big aha moment. It's not a fight between optimists and pessimists anymore. It's about recognizing that they're both just looking at different sides of the same coin. The contradiction isn't in the data, it's built into the very structure of how AI affects our economy.
And nothing shows this shift in thinking better than this. Eric Brynjolfsson, the very researcher behind the most famous optimistic study from 2023, was, just 2 years later, publicly ringing the alarm bell about the widening wealth gap. I mean, when the lead optimist starts pointing at the pessimist's data, you know the game is totally changed.
So, okay, if both these channels are real, then any strategy that only focuses on one of them is just going to fail, right? We need a plan that tackles both wages and wealth. And this new understanding points us toward a really practical 4-part strategy.
The whole strategy is built around these 4 wedges, and each one is designed to push back on a different part of the problem. It starts with things we can do inside companies right now and builds up to big, long-term global changes. It's a full-stack approach that targets access, ownership, global equity, and even the data we use to make decisions.
Okay, Wedge 1 is all about fair access. You see, most companies say they've adopted AI, but when you look closer, only about half of their frontline workers actually have access to it. It's like a silicon ceiling, and we can break that ceiling without passing new laws. We can do it by changing how we define adoption, making it about the worker, not just the organization, through things like corporate responsibility standards or new labor agreements.
Wedge 2 goes right after that capital channel problem.
If wealth is just pooling at the top, then the solution is to make more workers into owners. You could do this by auto-enrolling employees in AI-focused stock funds or by creating civic wealth funds. Think publicly owned investment funds that pay dividends out to every citizen. And this isn't some crazy radical idea. Even the CEO of BlackRock has talked about expanding stock ownership to fight the wealth gap.
Now, for the global divergence camp, Wedge 3 is for you. This is about stopping that gap between the global north and the global south from becoming a chasm. And the idea is to start treating AI infrastructure and computing power as a global public good, like we do with internet protocols. This would need serious international investment to make sure we don't end up in a new age of digital colonialism. And finally, there's Wedge 4, and this one happens alongside all the others. It addresses a really big weakness in all of this. The data we're relying on is pretty fragile. So this wedge is all about funding independent researchers to replicate the big studies and, this is so important, funding new research that's actually led by institutions in the global south. We have to make sure our policies are built on a foundation of solid, unbiased evidence.
Look, a great strategy on paper is one thing, but how does this stuff actually happen in the real world? So let's look at the timeline. This isn't a let's do everything at once kind of plan. It's a phased approach that builds on itself over the next 10 years or so.
Phase 1 is about what we can do right now. Wedges 1 and 4, getting better access and fixing the evidence, can start immediately. No new laws needed. Phase 2 then kicks in, activating those ownership models from Wedge 2, building up political support. And only then, in Phase 3, once we have that foundation, can we really tackle the huge geopolitical challenge of Wedge 3.
And if you want to know why Wedge 4 is so urgent, just look at this. A full 75% of all the research that global policymakers are using to make decisions on AI and inequality comes from institutions based in the US. That creates this gigantic structural bias in the very evidence that's supposed to be guiding the entire planet.
And the percentage of that research that comes from institutions in the global south? Zero. A flat 0%. Let that sink in. The very communities that face the biggest risks from AI are producing none of the evidence that policymakers are using to decide their future. It's unbelievable.
And the research brief that pulls all this together says it plain as day. We have enough evidence to start acting on wedges 1 and 4 right now. But we absolutely must fix this sourcing bias. Before we even begin to design a global solution like Wedge 3, experts from the global south have to be at the table, not just as advisors, but as co-designers of the whole system.
So that's where we land. The debate really isn't about whether AI is good or bad. The evidence is clear. It's both. The real debate, the one that matters, is about design. It's about intent. This dual channel contradiction is real, and this 4-wedge strategy gives us a path forward. So the question we have to ask isn't what will AI do to us anymore. It's what choices are we going to demand our leaders make with it?